If you take a look at what the mayor's salary was 4 years ago compared to what the mayor's salary is today, it's gone up over 14% in those 4 years. That's 3.5% plus more a year. Over this proposal is a way of saying government will. Gary Doty has been a career politician for 22 years, and he's been on the public payroll. He's been doing that. I've called one counselor, I think.
What does he want? What does he? Does he want to increase it to what your task force is saying, or even more?
No, I think he wants to put it where the task force is, which is all, that people can be effective at doing that. I don't think there's any question about it. But what happens is, I think you get comfortable with doing things the same way you've always done.
Well, this is our city, and it's up to us to decide what we want our city to look like in the future for ourselves and for our children. And if we do nothing, then things will just happen to us. And so it's important that we really take charge of what's happening so that this becomes the city we want it to be.
Credit cards make it very easy to blur the line between wants and needs. If you're carrying around plastic up at the mall, it's real easy to decide that I have to have that CD, or I have to have that pair of boots, I have to have that stereo system.
Yeah, the numbers are getting larger and larger and larger.
Nobody's going to tell you a little bit more evaporated, and when she's done today,
are rare. There's something that's common, so it's becoming important to handle credit responsibly. It's not new. It's just.
And the only reason we wear military clothes and use military equipment is because the clothes are cheaper and the equipment is tested and it's good.
But what would be your purpose in ever using it?
Hopefully never have to use it. Anything along that line has to be the absolute last thing on the list. And voting is on the top of the list.
Back in 1918, the state of Wyoming presented Michigan with 20 elk. Nearly 100 years later, Michigan's elk population is well over 1,000, and state officials have decided to do unto Wisconsin what was done unto them.
It's hard to believe that we have not had elk in the state of Wisconsin since 1860. It's 135 years ago. And today, when I had the chance to pull open the gates on the trailers to allow the elk go out, I can't tell you what an excitement and how great it was to be able to participate.
The 25 elk spent the last few months being examined for any possible disease. Early this morning, the animals were taken to a restricted area of the Schwalmingen National Forest near Clam Lake, where they will spend the next 2 weeks adjusting to their new surroundings.
That we're now entering a time when we must work together in order to achieve these kinds of monumental tasks, to restore our natural resources, to protect our environment, and to make this place a better place for us all to live and to leave to our children and our ancestors.
While the elk roam, the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point will conduct a 4-year study on the feasibility of the animal's survival in Wisconsin. The elk should get the study off to a positive start. 11 of the 19 females are pregnant and due in the next month. Even so, special precautions have been taken to make the experiment a success, including tagging the elk with radio transmitters.
Through the will of the people of the state and the support of governors and legislatures, we've been able to reintroduce the pine marten, the fisher, the wild turkey, the wolf, and the reestablishment to a strong benefit of the eagles, and now we have the elk.
The cost of the project is expected to be about $470,000 over the period of the study. Almost all of the money will come from private donations, with the state of Wisconsin chipping in $50,000 of the total. Near Clam Lake, John Jetta, Channel 6 News. It's a problem that has lingered for years, most recently reminding residents last Saturday. Heavy rains choked loose sanitary sewers because of faulty storm drains, sending large amounts of sewage into Lake Superior. Possible solutions last year were criticized as too expensive. At the same time, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency was threatening to take action against the city.
Economic development as we know it will cease. And we are certainly don't want to see that occur in Duluth.
Now the city's I&I task force has surfaced with a plan, and this time it has the blessing of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District.
I think so far they're right on track. All of the things that they told us that they were going to do, they've so far delivered on. The meters are in place. They're starting the public education campaign. They're talking about what the demonstration project is going to be in Lakeside and Morgan Park.
Meters and video cameras will be used in the storm sewer system to isolate problems.
We're using the process of tracking down the I&I flows through the electronic instruments that we demonstrated today, and then we're going to find simple but effective corrective actions to take.
Phase 2 of the project includes physical repairs to residential sewer problems. In some cases, the city will pick up the costs so homeowners aren't penalized. $400,000 has been set aside for grants.
By voluntary assistance of residents, using city grants, we can achieve many of these corrective actions. Some of these things are very simple, just regrading the land around the house, putting roof gutters on.
Officials are optimistic that smaller, less expensive solutions will be enough to correct the overflow problem by next spring. In Lakeside, John Jetta, Channel 6 News.
Some seaway tolls. We certainly don't want to get back into a regime where we're charging for some services that are already being provided and accounted for in other ways through some of our new user fees that are.
What does kind of spring? Oh, the spring plants are just going to do fabulous this year. I know some people have claimed that it's been a cold year, but I think it's been a really good year. I've had excellent success, and it's been nice and dry. We haven't had the monsoon season yet.
Paul found his tripod yet?
Lake Winnipesaukee, or Big Winnie as it's commonly known, is about 45 miles northwest of Grand Rapids.
The unique thing about Lake Winnipesaukee is its natural setting. So little of the shoreline is privately owned. In fact, only 1% of the shoreline has development on it. And that's a unique feature of our lake. Oh, there's a nice one.
Joe Thompson, whose family owns the Four Seasons Resort, is a veteran guide out here on Winnie, and on this, a cold and blustery day, it doesn't take him long to find a nice fish.
There's a Winnie walleye right there.
One feature of Winnie is that it's a big, wide-open lake. There is very little protection out here from wind and waves.
That big blue thing you're looking at in the water is called a drift bag. What it does is it slows us down, and it also offers us better boat control. What we're doing is we're making passes over a weed line here in the northwest corner of Winnie. We're using a jig and a minnow and just kind of drifting along and kind of working at trying to find walleyes that way.
And when you finally hook into a Winnie walleye, it feels solid, good average size here. And then there's that thrill of seeing that golden glow rising from the blackened depths.
Oh, Andy Bill.
Holy cow. Thompson says despite the size of the lake, fish are not hard to find. He says this time of year, find the shoreline drop-off and bait fish, and chances are you'll find walleye.
Now that is a big Winnie walleye.
But Joe Thompson says despite being one of the state's best walleye fisheries, this is not a place for that 10-pound plus fish.
So, as far as trophies go, Winnie has muskies as a trophy fishery. We get a lot of walleyes in the 6 to 8 pound class, but very few over 10 caught.
Thompson also recommends checking out the local resorts to find out what's working. He says conditions change so quickly on this big lake, so what worked yesterday might not work today.
Another nice one.
One other point that applies no matter where you fish, catch and release. We released each fish we caught to fight again another day. Walleye on the St. Louis River have recently spawned. They're now moving downriver. Today we're fishing just above the Highway 23 bridge. Our guide is Tom Pfister.
Well, what we're doing right now is we're imitating that smelt and shiner imitation. These smelt and shiners are up the river spawning as well. Now that the walleyes are done spawning, they're going to want some big baits.
And the baits we're using are plugs, large rapalas and rebels in bright colors like chartreuse, and the walleye are hitting them hard.
Just getting started.
Trolling speed very important, about 2.1 miles an hour. Also, we caught all of our fish trolling upstream, none trolling downstream.
That's not that big.
No finesse, these fish are hitting hard, so it's important to have a little heavier line if you're trolling plugs, anywhere from 8 to 12 pound test instead of the usual 6. A couple of other important notes: we caught our fish above the Highway 23 bridge. However, by now, the fish should be a bit further downriver. Check with local bait shops to see where the fish are right now. Meanwhile, Pfister believes this river holds a potential state record.
You think, you have a strong feeling that the state record could be pulled right out of here, huh?
I believe the state record will come out of here in the next couple of years, if it doesn't this year. I mean, the DNR are netting these big fish. Last year, I believe they had a 22-pounder in their nets, somewhere in that proximity.
And until that happens, if it ever does, there will be many fish caught in the 3 to 5 pound class, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Another real nice fish out here on the St. Louis River. These fish are all running in the 2 to 3 pound class, every fish we've caught so far. This is just a really great fishery out here, and it is so close to town that it's hard to believe that more people don't take advantage of it.
This is state record country, the Seagull River, which flows into Saginaw, guys, where the 17-pound-plus record fish was caught. Sag, as it's called, is on the edge of the Boundary Waters wilderness. It's not unlikely to see a moose feeding in shallow water or eagles drifting overhead. Today we're hoping to stir up one of Sag's big walleyes.
That is a good-sized fish, and that is really a...
On a sunny yet very windy day on Sag, the walleye seem to be in the windward bays. Wind sweeps in microorganisms, bait fish follow, and not far behind are the walleye.
That is a good-sized Sag walleye. That's what this lake is known for, is the big fish.
But guide Dave Shea says this lake is so far north that the good fishing hasn't even started yet.
The start of the season, that's always a go. Everybody's gung-ho to hit the opener, but up here it's just a little different because it just keeps getting better and better as the season goes on.
The bait fish you use when trying to hook a bigger fish is very important. Today we're using rainbow dace, a native forage fish here in Sag, and we're trying to use the bigger minnows. Dave Shea has been a guide on Sag for 19 years.
Solid fish. You got to love it.
This big lake is so full of bays, channels, and islands that in that time, Shea says he still hasn't fished them all.
There's a keeper if you want to eat one.
Today, the sun is shining brightly on Sag. Not typical walleye weather, but Shea says Sag is not a typical walleye lake. Mid-morning and mid-afternoon, he says, are often the best times to fish this lake.
Good fish. Look at that.
Another great thing about Sag is it's not just the walleye that get big here. With an oily forage of ciscos and herring, fish grow quickly. The chances at a big northern or smallmouth are good too. And if you do hook a 10-pound-plus northern on light tackle, it can be a heck of a battle. And even though catching and releasing a good-sized northern is fun, we came to Sag with one thing in mind: walleye.
Boy, another big fish out here on Sag. These things are huge.
Nice walleye. Look at that.
Now here's what made our day on Sag successful: fishing shallow, wind-blown bays and inlets, using rainbow dace, a native forage fish here, moving quickly if we didn't get a bite in a specific place, and having a guide who knows the lake.
This week we've been fishing and catching a lot of fish, and many of them are smaller fish, but Sag, of course, is famous for its big fish, and that's exactly what we're catching here today. This thing going 23.5 inches and probably the better part of 4.5 or 5 pounds. We're going to put her back now.
What a nice guy. Look at him release that fish. He says we want that mama saw that's down there.
There she goes.
Northland Rotarians built the clinic Yanamono for Dr. Linnea Smith, a Wisconsin doctor who gave up her practice to help the poor. Dr. Smith and her assistant, Hubencio Nunez, are the primary health care providers for 5,000 people living along the Amazon River. Word of the new clinic spread quickly along. Shortly after the clinic was built, Channel 6 News traveled to Yanamono with a group of Northland physicians who volunteered to train the doctor and her assistant in a variety of specialties. That training continues today with a visit to Duluth by Hubencio.
It'll give them a perspective on what is available in the modern world of medicine. It'll be quite a contrast between what he's used to and what he's going to see here. But I think there are some of the things, some things that we can teach him that would be useful back there.
And she's very swollen because the fluid from the burn, when you get burned, the fluid from your body rushes to the burn site.
Hubencio will tell you burns are a serious problem in the rainforest where fire is used to cook meals. This instruction at Miller Dwan's outpatient burn center will be invaluable.
Tell them we believe in a lot of keeping good skin moist with lotion.
This is my opportunity to expand my medical knowledge. There are many opportunities here that will serve me in Yanamono.
The visit to Duluth, funded by an anonymous benefactor, also offers opportunities to those who volunteer to instruct Hubencio.
It's fun to learn what kind of patient they have, the kind of types of patients that they have to deal with, which is a little bit different than we have here, but similar in that they do get some types of wounds, he said. Occasionally they have burns, and it's just, I can see it would be helpful for them to see what we do so that he can bring that back to his country.
Hubencio says he's overwhelmed by the generosity and kindness he's found in the Northland and is anxious to practice these new medical techniques back home along the Amazon. Michelle Lee, Channel 6 News.
The tourism industry along Wisconsin's South Shore is booming, and the crown jewel of that growth is the proposed Northern Great Lakes Regional Tourist Center. But last Friday, the Wisconsin Legislature's Finance Committee pulled $4 million from the center's funding package. That threatens a matching federal grant and might doom the entire project.
If the state funding doesn't come through right now, this project is dead.
Now, if the center isn't built, the possible impact of the region may be measured in more than tourism dollars alone. Over $700,000 have already been spent on this project, including subcontracting to lay a sewer extension to this site.
It's a ticklish political issue. State Senator Bob Jalk and Governor Thompson are charging each other with political gamesmanship, but Berglund wants everyone to know who's really caught in the middle.
Because anytime you get a group of volunteers working on a project for 8 years, there's a lot of people's hearts and souls in this project.
But the center isn't dead yet. Berglund vows to continue the fight, but points out that without government help, the project must fail.
Because of who we are, northern Wisconsin, we're very similar to northern Minnesota. With the low population, we don't have the large corporate companies up here that could come up with $4 million.
In Ashland, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
Process, all the rocket. I've been in it for...
We weren't all that surprised that
information about his whereabouts wasn't known right away, because if he got out in that territory, he's not going to make himself known and stand up on top of a ridge line and say, "Here I am, please come and save me." And he's going to hide out in the woods until he gets the right opportunity and the right time to make the rescue.
Well, it depends on where they go.
Well, this is our end of the year thank you for all the crossing guards in the Duluth area. And the school patrol crossing guards have gone out and crossed students safely morning, noon, and night all year long, and we've really had them stick to their task, and they've done a great job, and then this is our way of saying thank you to them.
Okay, I'll check.
I think everyone's just kind of running on the adrenaline right now, and everyone's so excited about the race, and everyone's exhausted, but yet you're happy that it's almost here.
Grandma's Marathon, may I help you? Okay, thank you.
Phones are ringing off the hook at Grandma's headquarters. While traffic is quickly clogging Canal Park, there's no other explanation. It's Grandma's marathon time. Over 6,000 runners from Canada to Mexico will compete for prizes, and this weekend compete with clouds for a break from this. Before thousands of runners cross the finish line here in Canal Park, they'll be battling more than sore muscles. This year, it's supposed to get hot.
Saturday, the major problem is going to be people are going to become dehydrated. Either they're not going to take enough fluids, or there's just not going to be enough fluids for them to take as they're running. They try to push themselves too hard, thinking it's a warm race, it's a warm day.
It could hit 90, a record high for Grandma's. Last year it was 75 and sunny, but 11 runners still went to the hospital. That's why Grandma's organizers are pulling together extra emergency volunteers to work this weekend. They say runners should be watching for swelling of the feet and fingers, cramping due to dehydration, fevers that could spell heat stroke, and dryness.
Spectators see anybody on the course who's running and it's 90 degrees out and they're not sweating, though that needs to be brought to somebody's attention because those runners are in trouble.
And if you're a local runner, doctors say you should be even more concerned. Most of us rely on a Lake Superior breeze, but because our bodies are accustomed to cooler summers, if 90 degrees hits, it'll feel like an oven.
And we certainly want people to know that if they are having second thoughts about it, they should definitely think long and hard about, do I want to really do this? Do I want to try it? And just be aware that it could be a very hot day.
In Duluth, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
Bit on like this, just kind of clamped. And at first I thought someone was trying to pull my hand, just a joke, And then I felt a teeth bite in, that really hurt a lot.
Well, there are over 120,000 people from all over who come to Split Rock each year. It has a strong tradition as one of the icons, as they said, of people visiting the North Shore, one of the places that many people want to stop and visit.
$55 has been way too low for a long time, and they claim that 60% of the people drive over that anyway. So I think it's a good deal.
People are not complying with the present law, so why not increase the law, and maybe that way it'll be safe.
Police believe they know who the woman is. Investigators are now waiting for medical records which will help identify her. The woman is believed to be in her 40s and from another state. Police here in Duluth are working with authorities from that state. However, Duluth police are not saying for now where the woman is from. One police source says they found several items inside this home yesterday that could have been the murder weapon. Meanwhile, police say they don't expect to know the woman's identity until at least next week. But they say when they do know that identity, they hope it tells them more about why this woman was found dead in the bathroom of this home. Beer bottles and other litter still sits outside the home, and nearly 24 hours after the body was removed, a pungent odor remains. Meanwhile, neighbors we talked to today say the house had been the site of numerous parties in the front yard in recent weeks as the body lay inside. Some neighbors even saying they called police to come to the house and break up those parties. Meanwhile, police confirm that the suspect in this killing is being held at the St. Louis County Jail on other charges. No word when or if charges will be filed in this case. Police were led to the body yesterday after a conversation between a citizen and someone in the St. Louis County Jail who said he knew of the body. One police source said it was a bloody scene. An autopsy is being conducted today. However, police say because of the condition of the 3-month-old body, results are not expected for, quote, some period of time. In Duluth, Bill Lunn, Channel 6 News.
It's an old gravel pit, donated land from two people. One was a former dimer tool worker, and the other is the county.
Crews have been working for 5 days to put out 4 fires in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. The 2 largest fires are continuing to burn along the Gunflint Trail. The Swede Fire, with the help of 5 crews, has been contained on the southern front and the eastern front to avoid movement towards the Gunflint Trail's main power lines.
On the Swede Fire, our main concern was the east side because it had the potential to go through a large area of blowdown and threaten a power line. So that was our main concern on Swede.
To the north of the Swede Fire, a major fire is still out of control by Windshell Lake. The first fire suppression crews, assisted by a special helicopter from out west, began working the fire today. The Vertol helicopter dumps 1,100 gallons per hour, making the workload for firefighters a little lighter. The biggest potential problem for the firefighters is that the weather may change. Hot, dry weather is expected for the remainder of the week, and that can make fires hard to control.
Well, it's hard to say what the long run will bring, but our intent is to get these fires contained before that weather hits.
Firefighters feel pressure to gain control of the fires before Thursday night, but morale continues to be high.
We had a crew from Minnesota here called the Sherburne crew. They came in for a day of rest. After they were done, we asked them how they felt, what they wanted to do, and they wanted to go back and fight that same fire they were on immediately. So it's really been great.
To keep new fires from starting, a ban on all outdoor burning goes into effect on Wednesday for all the counties in the Arrowhead region. On the Gunflint Trail, Quinn Mosby, Channel 6 News.
The guy stopped and asked me how I was doing. I told him I was doing fine, and he asked me if I was out walking the dog, and I said, yes, I am. And he said, bring him over here so I can see him. And then I got really scared, so I ran home.
It was recommending routine vaccination between the ages of 12 and 18 months for all children who are healthy and have not yet had a definite case of the disease. For children older than 18 months, we recommend vaccination, and we recommend that's done before they turn 13 years of age. At age 13, 2 doses are required, and chickenpox starts causing more serious cases of illness in children at that age. Applications.
Isn't this to a certain extent still an experiment because you're not sure how long this is going to protect people?
We have never had a vaccine that we were sure would give lifelong protection. We've always adopted the vaccine in the first years of its development. If anything, for the chickenpox vaccine, we have more years experience than any other vaccine that we've adopted in our routine childhood schedule. This vaccine has had over 20 years of research and development and has been in use in many parts of the world for some time now. We have data out that shows that well after 10 years that immunity remains and that children remain well protected from this disease.
It's that time of the year when fireworks stands and racks are popping up for the 4th of July. Among all the hustle and bustle of selling items, superior merchants have to be careful who they're selling to and what they're selling.
We have our fireworks rack set up by an individual who is familiar with the city and state guidelines, and we also are inspected by the police as to what we have on hand and the proper things that we are selling.
City ordinances forbid the sale of fireworks that spin on the ground, move, or shoot up in the air. In the past, firework vendors from Milwaukee would sell illegal fireworks, making a profit for their small, booming business. Since then, Captain McDonough of Superior Police Department says sites for selling fireworks have been restricted.
I think people being injured by fireworks in the past has resulted in the tightening of the regulations. I think one of the best things that the city government in Superior has done is restricting the sites where the sales can occur.
Even though guidelines are in place, almost 10,000 fireworks injuries are reported annually, and of those 1,600 eye injuries, 40% resulting in permanent eye damage.
I've seen lots of people who have permanently lost a vision in one eye or both eyes. About half of the people who are injured in their eyes have a permanent loss of vision or permanent impairment of vision, so that's quite common.
And for the people who buy fireworks in Superior and transport them back to Duluth, you may have to pay a $1,000 fine, and that would not make for a sparkling 4th. In Superior, Quinn Mosby, Channel 6 News.
President Corrine Scott, and representing her is Bill.
Pancake Day, which is usually held in May, helps.
In 1970, a needs assessment was done by our cultural officials in Central that we got from the community action programs used in the center. And we had outreach, we had a full-time nurse, registered nurse, station wagon, the Big B we called it. And I'll tell you, it was something trying. I was the youngest one, so they $1,200. Minerva Westman, Albert Anderson, Rosa Meyer, Dolores Potts, Joanna Adams, and myself. We met. We had many, many meetings. This just didn't happen.
Very quickly help a business grow and change.
Things that will occur is the fact that local businesses will be given an opportunity to provide services and become vendors. It will mean a tremendous boost for those businesses that are able to do business with Northwest, and so we're very excited. We would like to
It's been a pretty deadly weekend. Do you have a comment on that?
This is a weekend when a lot of people hit the roads, and unfortunately when we have a high volume of traffic and obviously some increase in speed, those two lead to more traffic accidents. Unfortunately, many of those are fatal accidents.
John Michael Montgomery's management crew's coming down to see us.
We're pretty excited about it.
We have a showcase down in Nashville on Tuesday, where we have some record people coming out. Some management folks are coming out to see the band and see what we can do. Our management down in Nashville is pretty excited about it, as are we. It's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to playing inside the arena. This will be I've always wanted to play here. So although it's
It's been more than 3 months since police handled the call of a rape here at the Stadium Apartments. Meanwhile, today, UMD Director of Campus Police Harry McCullochek expressed frustration that charges are taking so long, saying, "I'm frustrated, but I'm not blaming anybody." Meanwhile, Duluth police officers who supervised the case also expressed frustration today that to date, charges have not been brought. Investigators aren't the only ones growing frustrated here on campus. In fact, police have recently received a parking ticket written right here in front of Stadium Apartments where the rape is alleged to have taken place. The parking ticket contained the fine, all right, but it also contained a note saying investigators should spend less time writing tickets and more time investigating rapes. The investigation has also hit some roadblocks. Channel 6 News has learned that the victim was only able to identify one of 2 suspects in a photo lineup. And on the advice of his attorney, the suspect she was unable to identify has refused to be interviewed by police. Authorities say the delay in charges centers not only on lab tests, but debate over strategy in prosecution. But one source says it is likely charges will be brought soon, and those charges will likely be first-degree sexual assault charges. It is likely, the source says, that the men, if both charged, will face separate trials. In Duluth, Bill Lund, Channel 6 News.
Douglas County police officers had help from Washburn County officers yesterday, but today only a team of 30 men and 1 dog combed through the brush on County Highway L. Officers hoped to find Hansen's campsite, but there were no major leads. Early this morning, an anonymous caller said that Hansen was seen in Solon Springs, but Sergeant Al Peterson says those rumors were put to rest.
I think that was unrelated. I think it was just somebody else. The person described to me didn't match the person we're looking for.
Since Tuesday of this week, Douglas County police officers have been searching for Hansen. Hansen was spotted by 2 cab owners from Minneapolis who immediately called the police. The search team tried to pick up a scent that would lead them in the right direction, but there was no success.
It's moving along. We left off last night when the Washburn County K-9, basically, we had a scent on him on a road that's a few miles away from here. We quit because of the dark. We're coming back today to see if we can find where he's been staying in the immediate area.
Armed and dangerous, Steve Hansen was last seen here on Lyman Lake Road in County L, and neighbors have been warned to take precautions. Hansen burglarized 2 cabins, stealing a rifle, a box of bullets, and military food rations. Police officers were armed and ready for anything and anyone, with one mission in mind: to find Steve Hansen. On County Highway L, Quinn Mosley, Channel 6 News.
Curtain was straight out, so I knew there was some wind, so I hollered at my husband, and we were going to take off for the basement. But in the meantime, the house just felt like it was being picked up and going somewhere. And then we walked around the yard, and I said, "Oh no, look at our trees."
Therefore, when this bird was erased from existence, not only was it gone, but also its unique collaboration.
And so the play looks at who is innocent and who is guilty. And perhaps maybe the question isn't even appropriate at all.
I can barely take care of a cat. I'm always worried about what it's thinking. It amazes me how people can draw all this life to them and that it somehow makes them more focused, not less. The only birds I live with are in books.
When we have weather like this, it's best to leave the animal at home. Don't take them with you. Don't take them in a car because it's very difficult when it's this warm, even with the windows open, to keep a pet cool in an automobile or in a car.
Hey, come here. Come here. Come on.
Is it yours?
Yeah. Nikki, come on.
That are condemned in the community, and to deal with that, that at least could be printed out. Weeks before this woman's body had been. That 3 divisions in our city are not properly coordinated by sharing information. The police had violations against this building. Many police calls to this building. The fire department had calls to this building. Building inspection was trying to condemn it and had a series of appeals from the owner. None of the information was shared between the 3 departments. There's no coordinating effort to do that. That has to stop. Superiors, so. But, well, should we get rolling, or wherever you want to? Maybe we better get off the street here, just in case another is unbelievable that's been happening.
Barry Woods has been fishing and guiding in Voyageurs National Park since before the park existed. Like many of his neighbors, Woods has grown frustrated with the many park restrictions.
Coming from here, growing up here, and having the family and friends, there's a lot of good memories of what we used to do inside the park, and there's no reason that we can't let's say, have it all.
Woods and others like him claim the government promised development and economic return from Voyageurs, but instead added restrictions on boating, snowmobiling, and flying. One of the victims of the restrictions is Tim Elwell. Elwell runs a float plane service inside Voyageurs, taking customers for a breathtaking ride. He's frustrated at what he's being ordered to do.
The park, as it goes on and on, it's like a noose. They keep tightening, the restrictions are still keep coming on, and that's what's going on. Like this summer, this was the first time I've ever told that we couldn't fly in the park.
Voyageurs National Park officials say Elwell and Woods' complaints are too late. Park status was decided 24 years ago, and with that came a mandate to preserve and protect. Park supporters say even with motor restrictions, the park brings $20 million a year into the local economy. Superintendent Barbara West says no matter what the Park Service does, not everyone will be happy.
And the decision was made in 1974, or 71, this is going to be a park. And there's some sore losers in town who feel as if something was taken from them when this park was created.
In fact, something was taken. There have been close to 700 beds in the tourist industry surrounding the park lost since 1974. A study by opponents of Voyageurs shows a net loss of RV campsites, canoe outfitters, airways, bars, and bait shops as well. These losses have prompted Congressman Jim Oberstar to introduce legislation lifting virtually all restrictions. A congressional hearing is set for August 18th in International Falls. Both sides will get a chance to argue their case before a Republican Congress, which has demonstrated it is in the mood to cut programs to save money. The issue will be who can do a better job taking care of the resource.
We think we need to be conservative in this because one of the jobs of the National Parks Service is to protect wildlife over a long period of time, and that's what we're trying to do.
Not to say we wouldn't preserve it for future generations because they logged it for 60 years before it became a national park. So I think the people around here have done a pretty good job of taking care of it.
However, the national park has done some nice things, set up some nice campsites, and if we can somehow find some middle ground where we could still use it for everybody, but just have an additional few things we can do, such as
we do it because this is a part of the world that is essentially the way it was before we arrived, the way the Creator made it, however you think of the Creator.
John Pastor is an avid environmentalist, passionate about preserving Voyageurs National Park.
We want to preserve this to our grandchildren and give it to our grandchildren. This is the way it was, the way it used to be. And what are we going to say? It used to be this way, but we let the Minnesota congressional delegation dismantle it. And so now we don't have it. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Pastor is appalled that anyone would even suggest dropping restrictions aimed at preserving the park. But Congressman Jim Oberstar has already introduced a bill to wipe out current motor restrictions and prevent future ones.
The purpose of the legislation is to restore the original intent of Voyageurs National Park, which was to make this a multi-recreational facility with extensive motorized use in contrast to the non-motorized Boundary Waters canoe area exactly to the east.
A coalition of state lawmakers has proposed going a step further, asking to have national park status dropped altogether, hoping to keep the federal funding and turn control of the park over to the state or the county. That option is one of several that will be presented to a U.S. Senate committee in International Falls next month. Republican Senator Rod Grams, who set up the hearing, wonders if Voyageurs has lived up to its promise.
It's been over 20 years, and the economic benefits have been less than 20% of what was estimated or promised. And I think it's time to hold a hearing to see if we're on the right course. Are there adjustments that can be made?
Grams and Oberstar form a powerful bipartisan alliance that will carry clout in Congress. Republican leaders would like to use Voyageurs as a test case, a prototype for downsizing the overbuilt and underfunded national park system. Standing in their way is Democrat Paul Wellstone. Wellstone dodged the question in a live Channel 6 interview last week.
I think it's real important to listen to what people have to say, and if things can be fixed for the better, they should be.
But now Wellstone says he will oppose changes to Voyageurs, demanding a second hearing at a Twin Cities location. But even with Wellstone's support, John Pastor and environmental groups fear Minnesota's only national park may be in danger.
I don't think you appreciate what you have until you lose it, but then when you lose it, you can't get it back. So I think we're very lucky to have it, and I think it should stay the way it is.
That they're walled up in their apartment and they're afraid to open a window or unlock a door, and therefore the weather turns industries in many respects for the future of our economics in this country are the youth of today. And from my experience in working with these programs and dealing with them, that there's an awful lot of confusion on the part of youth today as to we do not have the security of careers that we had even one generation ago. We're operating in a world market. We're competing with youth from every different country in the world.
Even go on a little walk with us. Here, all the way out in the woods to connect me with the world with a shotgun. At 11 o'clock, I had to charge. Tapping on those computer keys is a lot easier than shoveling or pounding with a big hammer or chasing bad guys in a squad car. So I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. Yeah, move them all out of the sun. They're made from 3 gifts from the Creator. Fire and teepee. And when it got to be 30 below, to write on the computer, so I've evolved. But the same idea is the same. That once you believe what you have to say is important. Right. Who thinks about writing poetry, huh? That kind of a wimpy thing to do, right?
That too, we're doing okay. 52 for a normal, 32 for a normal low. 80 degrees and 12 degrees the normals. In fact, we've dropped off quite a bit. We had rain showers move through the area, and that dropped the temperature in 1 hour from 56 down to 46. Currently, we're sitting at 39 downtown, also 39 Superior, 40.
I was looking at the microphone. I'm not sure where those species of gobies reside and if they're actually adhere itself down in amongst the rocks. It is a bottom. The round goby first was found in the St. Clair River in 1990, and then it subsequently spread to the south end of Lake Michigan. And in both of those areas, the round goby populations exploded, and anglers were catching them, and they tend to dominate a lot of the fish communities in those areas. And they have kind of fat lips.
Yeah, do they have real sharp little teeth too, or?
Well, as a matter of fact, one of the people that alive, unfortunately it's preserved, but the eyes are kind of sunk in right now, but the eyes are slightly raised and are somewhat frog-like. So if the eyes hadn't been compressed during preservation, you'd see that these eyes really sit.
Across the Gulf of Mexico, where they've been ravaged over the last week with thunderstorms. That hasn't changed one bit. Here it is in motion. The clouds and the showers continue to move off slowly to the east. In fact, we're going to get into some dry skies back across portions of northwestern Minnesota.
Nothing wild and crazy.
No.
We've had some.
It's always a little difficult. Vacation's always hard to come back from.
You meet these things with mixed emotions. On the one hand, I'm very excited about a new opportunity and a new challenge. On the other hand, it's difficult to leave friends, and it's difficult to leave a department that I've had a great deal of input into. So it's with mixed feelings.
Not the ambulance service. I think now is the time to get out of the service, but I want to link to these people because I know most of them personally. They're capable of running that service, and I think if there's any option, we should throw it to these ambulance personnel, paramedics, and let them see what they can do.
And I think half of that would be $400,000, so conservatively we could to the counties. We don't know what those are, so our assumption is there aren't.
Anyway, so that.
Been in jail. He's been in jail.
You want to talk now or not? Yeah.
Work on kids when they're young, attack these problems in neighborhoods and children's, and have quality schools and safe schools and safe housing and employment, and less teenage pregnancy. Work on these problems when people are younger.
He doesn't care about how.
The first 150 years of this country's history was a democracy for only less than half of the population. So it took the women, and it was women primarily, fighting really hard, not just, asking for it, but having, lots of meetings and then marches later on and things like this.
which to control it. Did they have quinine and other drugs back then for this?
So it's pretty hard for people to say, well, this is a real biased view, you know, inaccurate about it than it is. I do think that there was some good done, and I do think that Quincentennial made some impact on the schools, if no other place.
Canada, very good. Okay, what is his country of origin, Laura? Okay, she can't remember. Can somebody help her out? How far they traveled. That's important for us today. How many of you kids have taken a trip into another country? Even Canada or Mexico?
Legislation. So we are looking forward to polluter pay legislation being introduced at both the national and state level. And we have press packets for 2. Polluters must pay their fair share. All Great Lakes states should adopt or expand polluter pay fees that give polluters disincentives to pollute and make them pay a fair share of the protection costs that otherwise fall entirely on the taxpayers.
No, he didn't hit any trees going down.
He went right over, you know, that
My wife was sitting right there, and she looked out this window, and she saw the plane going over then, and said, "Boy, it looks like that plane is going down."
They were still trapped inside the aircraft.
And they were dead at the scene.
They were dead at the scene.
You guys had enough yet? Looking for stand yet? Spin it.
We've got the world champion barrel racer, she'll be here. World champion steer wrestler, he'll be here. We've got the all-around world champion cowboy, Dan Daly, 28-time world champion, and he's going to be here. So they pulled in a lot of really good cowboys for this rodeo. So if you want to see professional rodeo, it's here and it's at its best.
This is the home of the rodeo from now.
This year where nowhere could be found. Over here I gotta sort of be Captain O'Sell and I can't go on screen. We're looking for a lot of
coverage in the media. I think we have to send a message to the community, our community, and the people involved that we will maintain a zero tolerance. We're not going to stand for people violating the law because of this incident.
They also want to change the way the newspaper goes through the mailroom, and we're willing to do this, but we're not going to lose any help, and if the way that they want to do this, we would lose jobs.
You're not married to her yet?
Are you looking for anything in particular at all, or?
Oh, gosh, I'm not trying to be a camera blogger.
Find what you're looking for?
Disco wear.
We made something of Viking.
Tired, I'm giving tours.
If ever there was a birdie backyard, this is it. A blue jay here, a woodpecker there, a hummingbird a-hummin', and some whatchamacallits drinking. This birdie menagerie is feather-proof, you could say, proof that Carol Henderson knows how to bring flocks together in a suburban backyard. The man who heads DNR's non-game program says there's no need to wait until winter to enjoy bird feeding.
Now people have discovered that with each of the 4 seasons, there are different birds that will visit yards.
In fact, Henderson recently wrote a book for the DNR about the secrets of bird feeding. His backyard, a birdie testing grounds.
In a nutshell, what I did is to try to provide as many habitat components as possible, all within one typical residential backyard.
Variety of habitat and a variety of feeders brings on the birds.
I think it adds to the success because every bird has different things that it responds to. A feeder like this with the peanuts will be used by nuthatches, chickadees, woodpeckers. The nectar feeder here will be used by orioles and woodpeckers. This fly-through feeder will be used by a lot of the larger birds like cardinals. And then the ground feeder is visited regularly by brown thrashers because some birds like to feed on the ground with literally no feeder at all.
In other words, a birdie menagerie takes more than a handful of black sunflower seeds, although that is the basic backyard diet Henderson recommends. Now there's new wormy attractants to try too.
One other feature that most people have not tried yet is the use of mealworms.
Birds love worms, of course. You can raise your own mealworms or buy them cheap, $5 for 1,000 worms.
The feeding by itself may not alone bring all the birds in. That you do need to make the whole area more attractive by the landscaping.
With a variety of trees, bushes, flowers, and feeders, Henderson has a steady bird show throughout the year.
These may not be species that are in great trouble from a conservation standpoint, but it brings people in to help learn about wildlife, to get concerned about wildlife. And it also just helps provide you with the type of outdoor recreation you can enjoy every day when you come home with your family. You get to see the birds at the feeder. It's a very rewarding type of activity because the birds do respond. It's recreation. This is having fun with the birds, watching the birds.
It's a show that lasts 4 seasons. I'm Ron Chera, Minnesota Bound.
Wake up! There's a chill in the air, and that means things are heating up down here on the farm. The Brooklyn Park Historical Farm, that is.
This is the way they always used to make wood.
It's a trip back in time to see how our forefathers spent their time getting ready for winter. Wow!
Kids love to saw.
Faster! Faster!
They find that it's a little bit difficult to do.
And a little bit eye-opening.
100 years ago, we did not have a fresh supply of fruits and vegetables all winter long. So in the fall, when the crop of apples came in, the housewife would dry some. And this is natural drying.
Ora Folt grew up during the Depression, and she volunteers
to give kids a perspective of what life might have been like back then.
Back then, when gunny sack races and the race of the wind through a swing passed the time, along with fall chores like cider making.
And now if you'll watch down on the bottom there, you'll see the products of our labor, or maybe the fruits of our labor.
Now there's just as much work inside the house as there is outside. Now, Novella, what do you have cooking in the oven right now?
Chicken, you want a nick?
And what are you making right here?
This is a topping for apple brown Betty, and we just took out some apple dumplings.
Smells wonderful.
Yeah.
And where's your microwave?
Oh, we don't use such a thing. No.
Such things we take for granted. Like the old form of duck, duck, goose.
It's always ladies first, okay?
Or the common courtesies of a hayride.
I think in our high-power, high-tech world, this is really great.
Getting ready for fall with a fall back in time. Chris Patro, Pier 11 News, Brooklyn Park.
The whole change in the curfew is very important to the police department and hopefully the community as well. And there was a lot of issues out there. Number one is the safety of the kids at that time of the night with impaired drivers running around. We didn't want anyone to get hurt, and of course we want everyone's property to be protected as well. So hopefully this will help us get a little bit better control on the situation. We'll deal with it from there.
Okay.
I kept thinking that something really bad was going to happen. But then at the same time, there was something inside me that said that it's going to turn out for the better. And I just held on to those feelings.
Those feelings came after what Griffith is calling a corrupt and racially motivated criminal prosecution for a robbery that occurred in June of 1993.
I mean, it's right there in black and white that I did lie, and I'll admit that I probably did. But to me, I hadn't had any training for answering questions in court.
It was that lie that is fueling the lawsuit by Griffith. The suit states that the victim of the robbery had described his assailants as white men with tattoos and consistently said no Native Americans were involved. Despite that description, Flood is reported to have approached Griffith with guns drawn, wrestled him to the ground, and arrested him. He later then allegedly planted a gold necklace next to Griffith, linking him to the crime. Flood was suspended without pay for 10 months in spite of a stiffer recommendation from the then acting chief.
We were pained by the situation, but came to the conclusion that there could be nothing less than termination.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
I said, no, let's see what comes out of it. And then after. Well, my friends and neighbors asked me to run because they were not satisfied with the outcome of the primary. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I'm encouraged by many sitting members of the City Council who support my candidacy, as well as people in the community.
You're just dismantling the whole system.
Yeah.
For the big HMOs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be controlled by the...
And you like it?
Thanks, Yeah, Danny. Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
How many of you feel that the medical assistance has been important to you? How many of you how many here as medical assistants?
My family, no. And I was married.
And right now, I think what you've got going on in Washington, D.C. is a rush to recklessness. And some people are being very generous with the suffering of others. And I'm not going to let that happen.
Good.
Thanks for speaking up. Thanks for speaking up.
Wow. What is that name again? Albertosaurus. Albertosaurus. Yeah. Albertosaurus. Okay.
It was a day for learning and for some to wonder how they could ever have existed in the first place. The Duluth Children's Museum's Great Dinosaur Adventure drew big crowds to Superior's Mariner Mall, some well before the exhibit opened.
This morning at probably 9:30 or so, we had people lining up all ready to go to see the dinosaurs. So we've had, if you notice the glass out in front, all the fingerprints, it's just an indication of how many people have been peeking in here for the past 2 weeks waiting for this to open.
The stars of the show, 16 robotic dinosaurs of virtually every type, plant eaters to meat eaters to predators. The only thing they have in common besides extinction, kids love them.
It's a mystery to me. I don't know why. I think they just look strange and they're all so large and I don't know, they're just different than anything you see today.
Arlene Halverson brought her 2 kids to see the show today. Nobody knows why kids seem to flock to dinosaurs, but despite the size of these exhibits, kids watched in fascination.
Children are sometimes a lot more, some people say, oh, dinosaurs are ugly, but children are a lot more accepting sometimes of differences, of the way something looks, and it's a stegosaurus to someone maybe, ooh, and to kids, it's cute.
There wasn't a stegosaurus in this exhibit, but don't try to fool these kids into believing there was. The young experts will get you every time.
It's not here this year, but I like stegosauruses.
How come?
Because they got the plates on their back and they got spikes on their tail.
There was plenty to learn today. Dinosaur eggs, skin, and even a robotic display all helped the kids learn about the time when dinosaurs ruled the earth. In Superior, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
Want to do this?
My friend convinced me that it would be a good time.
What are you getting done?
Rose.
Where at?
My lower back.
Lower back?
Yep, it's blue.
Are you a little nervous?
A little. A little more than a little.
Pictures of it. That's pretty much the big news in town.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, it seems to be working okay. I found a spot today, so as long as it keeps flowing like this, it seems like it should be all right.